Hey guys, Ryan Stileson here. It's 2 o'clock on Tuesday for the normal workshop that we have. I am interviewing Rabshan today. He is our guest. He has a lot of knowledge about conversational AI. He's in the back office right now, or he's in the waiting room. Before we let him on, what I wanted to talk about is, if you guys don't know who I am, again, my name is Ryan. I'm the founder of Accelerate Marketing, which is a digital marketing agency that's been around for about 20 years. And also, I also am the founder of a conversational AI platform and also a lead generation platform called LSA Command. And what we're interested in is leveraging artificial intelligence to generate leads and to generate results for businesses. And today is no exception. We're here to talk about the same topic that we talk about every week, and we'd love to have you join the conversation. So if you're watching this, you can click on the link that I'm going to post below the video right now, and you can join us and jump in on the call and the conversation. If you have any questions, you can post it below the video, and we will answer those live and or on the recording. If you want to join the conversation at our website, you can go to diyai.ai, or actually lsacommand.com is a better place to go to. And you can also go to our school community, which is school.com/DIYAI. And then also you can call us at 561-861-3238. Let me know what questions you have. Let's see, there's a comment there. Okay, so let me know what questions you guys have. I'm gonna start the interview here. And if you guys are looking to set up agents or looking to implement artificial intelligence into your business, right now agents are really the fastest way to do it. That's why the topic is what it is today. And the person I'm interviewing actually set up one of the first harnesses for large language models. And I'll talk about it in a second. I don't want to give away too much, but before Hermes came out and OpenClaw and all the others. So, and I want to say that, let me give you a little background as well. So, Rabshan is the founder of Deep Auras and creator of the Chantilly ADK. Rabshan's work is focused on moving AI from chatbot demos into real agentic systems that can use knowledge bases, tools, integrations, complex tasks, and even self-repair loops to generate revenue or reduce operational drag. What we're going to talk about, Chantilly ADK, VoIP Dog, and then potentially some other really interesting quant technologies as well, which I'll let him, introduce, and what actually it takes to build an AI that does useful work in the real world. So let me just Hey, Rabshan, how's it going?
Great, Ryan. How are you?
Doing great. So was that a pretty fair introduction of, what you're all about?
Yeah, thank you for the warm welcome. Yeah, I've been involved in computers for all my life, since I was like 11 or 10 years old, and I could actually start to piece together the puzzles that were in front of me, and that kind of began my journey. And it was very interesting to see LLMs really come to the forefront of mainstream society with ChatGPT. I think it was 3 that really started to captivate people. And even then, it became obvious that internet search was going to die. It was going to be the first thing on the chopping block. People were going to stop Googling because I started Googling less and less and was able to not rely on ChatGPT 3, but it was a little bit nicer to have these approximations in addition to the information that I was looking for.
Yeah.
So at that time, I was like, oh man, this is going to be something. This is going to be something to pay attention to. At the time, there wasn't very much use cases for the generative LLMs. They still weren't good at coding. OpenAI was about to go through their first bouts of drama, where there had some fractures within that company. Sam Altman was briefly fired by the board, and then at the behest of Microsoft, he was required to come back, and then some people from the board resigned, and that began an exodus, and that exodus became Anthropic. And so it was very interesting because as a developer, and I'm based out of North Cal, so right outside Silicon Valley, and it was probably around those parts that the tech, or rather the AI boom, started to have its fallout, because you had all of your low and underperforming engineers, your administrative people, your marketing people, that the people that were already losing their jobs to automation and offshoring, that just accelerated with a great intensity. So there is a labor glut right now in the North Cal area. And I was a part of that. I had found myself out of a job with no startup. I was working at a startup and it didn't work out. And so I had the options of trying to interview and get another position, or really leverage AI to do the things that I was not able to do, but allow my talent to actually become monetized and accessible. And at the other time, despite the drawbacks of losing my job and not having a good job market, I felt empowered because the the things that I understood about LLMs and the limitations of it became pretty useful. And the LLM itself, the narrative, became a call to action. This really accelerated when DeepSeek came to the picture, because at that point, it was like, wow, this is, not only do we not have a moat on this technology, but we are also able to use it as a rallying point. Of all the businesses and small businesses and mid-sized businesses that I've engaged with, everybody's like, oh, we need to implement generative AI, we need to have agents. And it was interesting because you cannot have a good agentic system unless you have a strong operational tech foundation within your organization. And this typically happened with prior digital transformations, where we went from on premises, where all of your servers and your mainframes and your databases were at your office, and we moved over to the cloud, where now everything's in these very flexible compute primitives, and everything has connectivity between AI, and your databases are now data lakes that has so many different variety of data types that all have to be, or all can be, ingested. And now we're in the midst of another digital transformation, which is incorporating generative AI and agents into a way that at least makes the quality of our work better. And that is a deep part of generating revenue, because if you can stand out past your competitors, if you can give them that extra oomph that will help you land your deals and close your clients, then you are leveraging it correctly. Those tokens that you're spending are now coming back to you double. So
Yeah.
I don't want I don't want to
No,
keep
that's a lot.
going.
I mean, I didn't know that you had that background, and and that kind of and I also didn't really, I guess I didn't really even know that Anthropic actually was a result of people leaving OpenAI, which it seems like OpenAI was kind of the starting block for pretty much, this whole
Yes.
thing. And Elon was like at the center of it with Sam Altman, and now we've got
That's correct.
we've got this court case going on because it was supposed to be a nonprofit or not for profit, and obviously that was changed. So it's interesting how things have changed and how solid of a system that Anthropic has been able to create, even as a offshoot of OpenAI. I mean, they're
Yes.
outperforming them in many ways, and did up until finally 5.5 came out. I think.
So I think you're absolutely spot on with your assessment. And I had that same alignment a while back. When I tried Claude Code, because when you go to Claude AI, it's just a chatbot, just like ChatGPT. So for me, it was just like, cool, it's something. And the answers from the prompts that I was giving it were more academic, they were more erudite. It seemed like their training distribution wasn't from just the internet, but from a college library and from postdoctoral theses, and they had a heavier weighting on those things than just hearsay or anecdotes that you find on the internet. So I think the training distribution was a little bit more correct. But what really differentiated Anthropic and OpenAI and AI to me was Claude Code. And Claude Code to me was a amazing application of the just the semantic processing power of an LLM combined with the pure keyword searching just by tokens. When you're evaluating code and you're building sprawling web applications and you're talking to teams that are all over the world that have different ways of using metaphors and analogies and different design patterns, sometimes all the words and the jargons get mixed up and muddied, even if you have a really good company style guide or you have great training. There's always going to be drift, and you kind of want that drift. You kind of that's what keeps you vibrant and new and fresh. You want to be able to keep on bringing new cultures and new generations into the fold. So the drift is not something you should work with, and that's what Claude Code really shined on. And for it to be built right into my terminal, meaning that when you're a developer or an engineer, you're not just interacting with software with menus and buttons. You're actually talking to the operating system through a command line. And the command line terminal, the fact that Claude was right in there and it could synthesize commands for your terminal, it was a game changer because it wouldn't completely be unhinged. The human, myself, was always in the loop. So I could always push if there was a terminal that was going to destroy my computer or erase the contents of my project, then yeah, it's on me. It's my responsibility to say, no, don't do that and push back on it. But the development time for a feature went from weeks to days, and then the testing and then final polish to production now is in the matter of weeks for certain features. In addition to that, the flexibility now that we have in dealing with our clients is so much more empathetic, because now instead of pushing back on clients and saying, this isn't really structurally possible because we don't have the design budget to do it, is no longer there. It's more or less like, let me get in your shoes, let me really figure out what is the solution for you, and then we can engineer it in using AI, using these LLMs, using our own working examples that we have in our own code base, and then we can improve it. So that iterative process has really become supercharged.
Yeah.
But the main takeaway is Anthropic focused on an enterprise use case. That Claude Code was really not generating cat memes or wasn't really coming up with uh, novels or fiction or anything like that. It was really something that AI kind of had missed the plot on for a number of months and a number of quarters, until they realized, hey, we're losing out to Anthropic because Claude Code is like, it's really useful. And that usefulness really influenced me because I wanted to take what Claude Code was, which is a closed source software, and make it open source and available, and then have it so that not just me, but engineers all over the world and at any scale can utilize a harness. And this was kind of built around the same time as OpenClaw and some of the other harnesses that have come out. I just didn't spend any energy in marketing my open source project. I was just like, I'm just going to make it available for people.
Yeah.
But the other reaction was from Microsoft Copilot Studio. The majority of my clients have Microsoft Copilot. That it's just something that came baked in with Office 365. And I would say that 70% of my clients had or have a Office 365 account.
Yeah.
So Copilot Studio became a huge interest. People were said, yes, I want an AI, I want an AI agent. I have Copilot Studio. Can we use that, please? Because we already have it. It's already included. So I spent a fair amount of time attempting to do all the things that Claude Code could do, but on Copilot Studio. And unfortunately, because of Microsoft's fragmented ecosystem, it wasn't possible. Even making a simple agent that plugs into customer relations management APIs was very, very difficult to implement because of the, I would say, peculiarities of Microsoft's platforms and their integrations. So it was very tough. And therefore, I was like, all right, I have a need. My clients have a need. We're here at a marketing moment. Now's the time to invest my time and energy. And if people can use it, great. If they need additional help with it, I'm always available to help them. And hopefully other engineers adopt it and they fork it and they start building on top of it too. The idea of Chantilly is to be agnostic and not to have vendor lock-in. That's something that I really wanted to prevent. And the concepts or the pain points of not being able to have your own data or not have the way to control or correct your agents over time was something that I really empathized with. You don't want to keep on telling your agent over and over and over again your company policies just because you start a new conversation. You want it to be able to have that grounding in its truth. And at the same time, you want to be able to tell it what is first order knowledge and what is second order knowledge and so on, just like a normal human being. When you hire an employee, they're going to come with their education, they're going to come with their biases, they're going to come with things that their mom and dad and their uncles and aunts taught them. But your training, your SOPs and your policies in your company are supposed to come first when they're on the clock with you. That's your first order knowledge. And so the knowledge base was kind of built around that. And then the toolkit, because everything is web technology and Chantilly is based on web architecture, it's designed to be interoperable with any API. It's designed to run in the cloud. So if you only have a few employees and you're not putting a lot of load onto your agent's compute, then you're saving money. But if you have an agent that's publicly facing and it's taking on lots of requests, then you're scaling with it, but you have to realize that it also scales with the cost. A lot of the agents sometimes don't have that metering built into the architecture, so you're kind of stuck. Like OpenClaw is a great example of that. OpenClaw, you run it on your mini Mac, but in order to have multiple agents, you got to keep on buying more mini Macs, which kind of seems like it is like the Apple then is making the money right there, right?
Yeah, right.
So with Chantilly, since it's all on cloud architecture, it scales with compute. So you don't need to keep on buying more Minimax, and you don't need to change anything on the back end. It automatically upscales and descales based on usage. And then I think the last big bit on Chantilly is that because we're here, there's the AI is not going away.
Mhm.
We're going to keep on seeing benefits from it in ways we probably haven't anticipated. So we always have a development cycle just within Deep Aura's, my development company. Every single quarter, we're trying to accomplish new improvements. So even though like it is open source, our maintainers, even though I'm a small company and we're still growing,
Mhm.
it's something that we're going to offer analogous to all the developments that come out. So our big thing now was MCP servers, and we're super excited because we have this MCP server for draw.io, which allows you to make really like basic flowcharts. But what's useful about draw.io is that it allows the human in the loop to make all the fine tuning. And then the last part of the pipeline is the nano banana. So we
Mm.
can say, all right, we've got the overall shapes down. We've got all the pointers to the flow charts and the paths correct. Now, Nano Banana, it's your turn to put the pizzazz and make it nice and polished. So it's that kind of added ability that we're trying to add to the agents. Another thing that we added with the MCP was the Blender MCP, and that's something that's super exciting for me because if you have these infographics and then you have a slide deck and everything else, then you can tell it, make me some 3D animations in Blender.
Mm.
And Gemini is really, like when you use a Gemini agent
Yeah.
as the LLM, it's really spot on with Blender. And sometimes it doesn't have that human eye, so the placement isn't like perfect.
Yeah.
That's where you make your fine tuning. But the animation, like the time to make a really nice animation now, like a 3D animation or a photorealistic animation, is like a matter of hours.
Yeah.
And that's because of the MCP tools.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize like how important it is to make MCP servers now. So if you're in the business of making apps or applications or things that plug into other businesses, an MCP server is now a must-have because it allows any LLM to kind of shimmy its way in there.
Yeah.
And because it has the context of what everything does, it's like it doesn't waste tokens,
Yeah.
and it actually builds on all of the context and its mistakes too. So that's kind of like why I think like, and I'm also open, don't get me wrong. I think I don't mean to talk bad about OpenClaw. OpenClaw is great. OpenClaw, I think when you need something to be able to simulate a whole virtual person on a computer, OpenClaw is pretty great for that. Now, I don't know all the limitations of OpenClaw because I personally haven't used it because I've been using my own thing.
Yeah.
But OpenClaw is similar, and I encourage everyone, if the biggest takeaway from this is to try the harnesses,
Yeah.
is to try Claude Code, to try OpenClaw, and see what fits for your operation or for your needs, because
Yeah.
it's not a one size fit all.
No, I agree. I mean, I got a lot of questions now because, well, first of all, multiple questions. I mean, I'm going to ask a few at once because
Go ahead.
you went for a little while there. So, number one, uh, are your clients for your dev company that you develop Chantilly with? They're using Chantilly, I assume. So
Correct. Yes.
okay. So you've implemented Chantilly, which is actually what's interesting. Like I, through my agency, Accelerate Marketing, I've been helping businesses for years, with their digital marketing. almost 20 years now. And one of the things that these business owners I see is the big need is exactly what you just said. They want they want the end results. They don't really want to get messy with the AI agents yet, especially considering how messy it can get. Because I started with OpenClaw 4 or 5 months ago. I bought the Mac Mini. I took it back. Then I went. I mean, I was using OpenClaw with Google's anti-gravity, their IDE, their integrated development environment, and we called it Gravity Claw. So it was like this IDE that was bolted on, because I'm not a programmer. So I was using the IDE as the programming part, and having that interface with the harness. I didn't even know what a harness meant back then. I just knew that OpenClaw was a tool that you could use to get shit done. And I'm like, I just want shit done. I got a lot of shit I want done. You know what I'm saying? I just know I got a lot of shit and I want it done. So like, how do we do that? And I think I'm like everybody else. I mean, that's what I make up in my head. I mean, I might not be, but all I'm saying is that, if I had my way, I would have had somebody approach me 4 months ago and say, Ryan, I got this amazing agent that's just going to get the shit done for you. And you won't have to spend the 2 or 3 weeks of your time over the next 4 months to work this shit out and work out OpenClaw and figuring out how to set it up. I mean, I'm still working it out. Now, has it gotten better? Oh my gosh, yes, because OpenClaw would break, Reinhard, whatever that guy's name is that developed OpenClaw. He sold it to OpenAI, made a gazillion dollars. They've been shipping a lot of updates, tons of them, but OpenClaw still breaks so often. Everybody on the internet, on YouTube, is saying, okay, forget OpenClaw. Now everybody's moved to Hermes. And I understand. I agree. These guys at MIT built this harness. And the way I think of a harness now is I get it, because I'm just trying to grab the harness for the horse being a large language model. I'm trying to direct it with the harness. That's really what we're trying to do. It's a great analogy. It's a great word picture. I mean, because really that's what it is. And it's a really actually easy way for me to explain to business owners what it is that I'm trying to help them do, because they're using the large language models. They understand that if they walk away from the conversation that they're having with a large language model, yes, they're getting better at context, but if they walk away from that conversation, that large language model is not going to remember what was said, generally speaking, the next day, which is part of the context issue. That's why I introduced you to Ezra, because I'm trying to solve for that. Everybody's trying to solve for that, to make sure that these large language models, if you've got a great harness on the horse, but the horse has no freaking memory of where you've been, where you're going, then you've got to keep, like you said, reminding it of what it did yesterday and what you want it to do permanently. And so we've been putting these bolt-on features like, these vector databases, first with Pinecone. And then we bolted on. I mean, dude, I've been, and I'm not a programmer. And I mean, like I've learned all these things, I've learned all these tools. It started 2.5 years ago with just trying to solve one problem with an AI agent, which is just to get the phone answered, because that was the number one problem that I heard for almost 18 years of talking to business owners, that they didn't want to admit. And they also didn't know. They didn't know that their problem was actually not getting the leads. It was actually converting the leads by actually answering the phone, which is totally paradoxical. I could send 80% of businesses as many leads as I wanted to send them, and they still would only answer the phone maybe 50% of the time. So that was my number one problem that I set out to solve. And now, fast forward 2.5 years, I'm developing not just a conversational AI agent, but a tool, an AI software that actually gets stuff done, that gets things done. And, to wrap this up, I mean, basically, I'm now using Hermes. And we used, by the way, we used patches on top of just building out a Pinecone vector database. We also I'm now using Obsidian to try to, to try to create, context for my agent, and it's working. Hermes is doing much better. The guys from MIT that developed Hermes built in a native memory for it that's outside of Obsidian and the vector database that I've developed with Pinecone. So it does a really good job, a much better job of remembering, and it can go with a /goal, a /goal command. So you give it a /goal command, and it creates now subtasks that are managed by that super goal, if you will, and so that it doesn't just run haywire to try to get that one goal accomplished. So these are all things that need to be solved for. But I can tell you now that, so the way I'm doing it, now I'm really curious to what you think of this. The way I'm actually doing this, Rabshan, is I've actually, a la Gravity Claw, I've migrated, because I went from anti-gravity as an IDE to Claude, to Claude code. And then when 5.5 came out, I saw how good it was, and it was even better. Now Claude Codex is great at coding, but Claude 4.7, Opus 4.7 is still good at like management and overall just overseeing, which is what I like about Hermes. I can switch from one platform to another based on what I need. So I can use Opus 4.7 for managing and for creating content, and then Codex for programming, for example. And I can use like OpenRouter to use like smaller level platform or large language models in order to get regular stuff done that I don't want to spend a lot of tokens on. Now, right now, honestly, I don't understand this. Some people that are like, oh my God. I mean, if you're spending like $3,000 a month, I get it. You're spending too much money. But right now, I look at it as being a race. Like, it's a race to try to start to try to understand how to use these platforms. So I really don't care if I'm using 4.7 and 5.5 all the time, because I want it to be as smart as it freaking possibly can be. Because in my opinion, the token utilization or the token cost is a non-issue. Like it doesn't, I mean, I don't have as much money as, Grant Cardone or any Elon Musk, but still we're in the beginning phases of creating an autonomous entity, basically, that can get things done, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Right now, if I spend a little bit more money to learn and to get things done faster, so be it. You know what I'm saying? I was on track to spend only when it's absolutely needed, and my cost has been brought way down in terms of my usage. In my opinion, everybody that can afford of utilization for either 5.5 or Opus 4.7 needs to be learned, like you said, needs to be learning these skills. What I know, which is Hermes, for business owners, because these guys, because now I am able to get stuff done. I'm able, today was the first day that I've connected to the X API, which I think we were talking about the other day, and I gave my agent read and write capability, so it's now posting content on X on my brand channel for me. And I'm also doing the same thing on my YouTube channel. I can't have it post videos, but I can have it post posts on my behalf, which is awesome. So because that's my favorite channel, is YouTube. And then, so X and YouTube, I mean, if I'm doing those two things and I'm posting really good content there, that's check, number one. Number two, it's got access to all my emails. I've given it its own email address. It's maxed at, DIYai.ai. And it also sees my email address. It sees my email. So it can respond to people for me on my behalf. Now I trust it because I've seen it actually respond and how good it responds. I let it, have me be the human in the loop for the first 2 weeks, about 2 weeks ago. And man, I mean, we're at a tipping point right now, I feel like, where even a month ago, it almost wasn't worth it because of how much OpenClaw was breaking. I don't know how you probably got Chantilly to perform really well because it's your own platform and you could fix it really quickly, or at least you'd have somebody do it for you. But now Hermes is at a point where it doesn't break that much, and you can give it a /goal command and it gets stuff done. It works for 12, 24 hours continuously on a goal. And now I've used a server. I used to use Hostinger, okay, to have it run all night because I don't want to use my Mac. And I've also got it running on my Mac as well. So I've got it running locally, and I've got it running on a server which is called Orgo. And so what's interesting, this is you might find it interesting. I mean, I can get up to 5 computer terminals with 4 gigabytes of memory, and I think it's 4 gigs of RAM for $29 a month that I can assign to businesses so that they can have their own 24/7 agents. I don't know if you might be using like Docker and your own server,
I mean, my concern is just the token costs. So like how much, if you're using Anthropic's API for Hermes, I'm curious to see what that would be on the specific tasks that you're having it perform.
Mm-hmm.
And then additionally, with Chantilly, the whole idea for it was to just have complete interoperability and to have the boundless ability to add as many tools as possible. So when you're talking about the Twitter API, that was the other thing. Like when I looked at Twitter's API, and this may have changed, but the last time I looked at it, to have write ability or to have it be where it was anything meaningful without a rate limit, it was kind of cost prohibitive. So I may have to relook into that. But what I focused on instead was Blue Sky, which was Twitter's alternative. And then in addition, there is a YouTube tool, but Chantilly also has CRM tools. So things like Salesforce, Bittrex24, has Gmail integration as well. So and GChat. So I have one agent for Deep Auras called Marketing Morgan. And the way I talk to Morgan is through GChat. So that's how I do all my interaction. But in addition to that, Chantilly has a one-click web, not one click, but it's a web installer. So it's a graphical installer. It helps you set up the actual agent itself. It helps you set up different users, and the dashboard allows not just you, but your entire team to start coming in and curating different things. So I think one of the things that you had mentioned in your pain points was like the setting up of the agent. And that was my goal, was to streamline that and make it so that non-developers would be able to have something handed off to them that they would be able to continue on curating and continue on being able to manage without having to call an engineer every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So the goal was really to have all of that. And so now there are certain clients that talk to Chantilly directly through the CRM chat. So Salesforce has a built-in chat. Bittrex24 has a built-in chat. You're able to talk to it that way. There's scheduling as well. So if you wanted to check on something every hour, every 4 hours, or do something on a routine, it's called, in developer terms, it's called a cron job. But here in our backend, or rather in our dashboard, it's just called the scheduler. And then what's also awesome is the tasks, right? So when my clients just want to tell the agent to do something and have it be done.
Do it.
Right. So for example, they want to say, look, I have admin people. I want to talk to the agent just like my admin person.
Yep.
So an example of this is I have a tech support company, and the owner of the tech support company said, look, we have these clients. Sometimes they don't get billed correctly. We do work for them and we close out tickets, but then we don't invoice them correctly. So I want to be able to ask the agent, look at our call records in our VoIP system, look at our engagements in our customer relations management, and then look at the work that's been performed in our ticket queue. And then based on all of that information, come up with a comprehensive report, right? And that report becomes a deliverable. And you don't, and I wanted Chantilly agents to be able to do all of this with natural language, because in the past, in order for you to do an audit, you'd have to tell a human being, they'd have to put their brain power and they'd have to look at the pieces of information and then make a determination.
Yep.
With the Chantilly, it's the same thing. The only thing that's different here is that it's in computer code. So the ability to look at the telephone system, that's an API that it connects to, a VoIP API, Ring Central or Nextiva or 3CX, one of those things, many different VoIP providers. So we have a tool for Chantilly to connect to that. Looks at the data, and then the next thing it's looking at is the CRM. So it's looking at, hey, what were the actual engagements? Maybe it's missing some stuff. I'll flag it to add it into the CRM data too. And the last thing is what was the work being done? How much money did this cost the company, and how much do we charge against our pricing tables in the knowledge base?
Wow.
And at the end, what comes out is a nice PDF report. It breaks everything down, and the owner or the user doesn't have to program any of the API, doesn't have to do anything, none of that.
Wow. So
let's say the task completes successfully, you get this nice little deliverable. Maybe some of it's wrong, but for the most part, 95% of it is correct. And it's good enough as a deliverable that after 5 minutes of modifications, you can send that to your end client. And then you can say, hey, here's our invoice. This is what we missed. Maybe we did some work a couple months ago and we forgot it. We're going to maybe discount it because it's our fault for not doing the bookkeeping properly, but you do owe us this money. And so that kind of proof in the pudding that was accomplished in 10 minutes of prompting and then a 5-minute worth of correction that's invaluable. But what happens if the code changes? What happens if some of the APIs, the VoIP API or the Salesforce API or some of the other APIs change? Because in technology, everything changes. There's some update somewhere in your chain reaction. And that's where the self-healing comes in. The self-healing looks at what the actual error is. The agent goes and does research. It looks, hey, did Ring Central update their API? Let me go look at the change logs. Oh, it did. Let me go look at the specific changes. Aha, here's the change that was made. I know how to heal myself now. So you don't need to call me. You don't need to call any engineer when you have all these tooling that's built up. And you have, when you're talking about that knowledge base and that vectorization, that's already built into our system. But what keeps on getting added is when you swap out Gemini for Anthropic, because that's now Anthropic's got the best one, or maybe in the future, DeepSeek makes everything for free and that becomes the latest thing. And you don't have to pay anything for tokens.
Right.
You don't lose any of the data. You don't lose any of the memories that goes into the self-healing. All that research that the agent has done still gets retained, and you're able to kind of build off of that.
I like that because that's really what we all want, obviously, right? Is to be able to go with whatever engine in our car or whatever horse we want to put a harness around. We want to put
Exactly.
the harness around the strongest horse so that we can get to the finish line. And sometimes that horse might be 5.5, codex. It might be, Opus 4.7, or it might be a horse that, is equivalent or almost just maybe one notch lower, but it's free. You have options. You can make the decision based on what the needs are. And that's the key. That's what's different now versus what's been available for the past, until now. And even, and that's what I like about these harnesses that are coming out now. I mean, and yours included, which is amazing that you developed this harness so long ago. Before OpenAI, any of these other harnesses were out. But yeah, I agree with you. The MCP interaction is the ability to be able to give people access to your software via MCP is so huge. And that's one of the things that I try to do with my software, LSA Command.
Yeah.
But ours is, because it's gated data from Google, we have to get approval from Google to be able to share that information with other people.
Right.
So that's the challenge, is so we're unfortunately not able to. And that also might give us a moat, because if we're in that boat, then everybody else is. So
to that point, like, one of the main reasons I developed Chantilly was so that you could have security in your harness as you choose, because that is what varies the most between organizations and clients. A doctor's office who has medical records, but they want to have an AI help with their scheduling, still has to be OSHA compliant. A tech support company that is managing an organization's tech stuff, they can't let out what antivirus or what encryption or what all those pieces of information are. That has to stay guarded. So the information that actually reaches Anthropic or Gemini or OpenAI, your harness has to really be sensitive to that and really help you not just protect against it, but also flag things. Because if it silently lets things through, that's pretty bad. And that was one of my whole thing. It's like PII, personal identifiable information. Like, you can't. Chantilly was very, very aware of that. My white paper goes into a little bit of depth why it's so important to have that level of modularization, because then when you're able to say, hey, this is what protects and maintains the security on the scaffold, and you can modify the levers and add your own levers and safeguards, then it becomes an enterprise level agent, not just like an agent project, but now you're really scaling with the idea of like, hey, this is something that is going to be consistent and it's going to be secure so that it can't be exploited. Because you don't want to have an agent that people are chatting with when they're getting your credit card numbers or social security stuff from your clients. That would be terrible.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally. And there's already so many opportunities for security violations or security hacks with these harnesses, that people in the beginning, they were just, OpenClaw was an open book. I mean, literally, like, people didn't know it and people were getting hacked. And that was one of the reasons why I really took my time, because I was like, I don't want to jump into this and then and just be a guinea pig, for their, for their, open source, $1 billion, venture that, they're testing everybody out with, I was very slower than, I'm a first actor. I mean, I definitely am one of the people that tries things out initially before most other people do. And I do that because it's fun. B, it's like, I think it's really interesting, like, learning from that experience. And it can also get you a lot more market share if you're able to leverage the technology. Now, it's not always the easiest, as I shared my story earlier, I had a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. But you know what? And now I have a much better understanding of how these harnesses truly work. And I also can make better decisions on where I want to go now in the future that
Hmm.
technology is getting better. So
Yeah.
I can make very clear and quick, concise decisions on, okay, I want this, I don't want that. And I know because I've gotten some bumps and bruises along the way. So it's the what you had been mentioning about, and I know that OpenClaw and Hermes call them different things. Your harness sounds like it's much more custom, much more managed. What you're offering is very rare, actually, and it's because I didn't even know that there were people offering agents on an enterprise level like you're offering, and with the solutions that you're offering. Because the biggest challenge right now that we found is that enterprise level companies, their internal their internal internet team or their technology stack team does not, in general, understand agents and AI. And so what these enterprise, that's the big opportunity right now.
Hmm.
So the opportunity, and I learned this actually from a colleague of mine named S. Lee. He's developed chat agents for 10 years now. And he said, Ryan, this is 2 years ago, and we were working together on developing this, conversational AI agent. He's like, the next wave, and this was like last year, and this is like a year and a half ago. He's like, the next wave of opportunity is going to be going into enterprises and being their AI expert, because they're scrambling to try to figure out this puzzle, that is AI. And what you're offering is something that I don't know how many other people are offering, but man, I just, especially since you're offering it with such customization, and the fact that it's actually your software. The
Hmm.
thing that I always tell people that they've got an advantage with me on with LSA Command is that you have access to the actual owner and the developer, my developer Alex.
Yeah.
And that's a huge advantage, because then, like, all my clients have WhatsApp access to us. So if there's
Yeah.
a problem, dude, it's fixed in like 5 minutes, like 10 minutes,
Yeah.
I also want to point out, and we have about 7 more minutes, but this has been a really good conversation, because I've learned more. I know there's a lot more that you wanted to talk, and I wanted to talk to you about, because you've done so
Sure.
many other things. Maybe we can mention those really briefly before we wrap up here. But I just recently, and I'll tell you how far I've come with this. We set up a staging uh, repository for our LSA Command software, because I was working with Alex, my software developer, and I'm like, Alex,
Hmm.
and I don't want to freak you out, dude. I'm like, I don't want you to think that I'm trying to get rid of you. I just
Yeah.
want you to know that I need to know, number one, like, if something happens to you, how, what are the processes for actually like restarting the software and keeping it going, number one.
Yeah.
And more, what I was asking you for is I wanted to know how I could recreate that
Yeah.
inside of these harnesses. And at the time I was using anti-gravity. So I made a
Right.
very blunt effort. I used a blunt tool to do a very precise, to implement a very precise strategy, and it didn't really work that well. And I broke some things, to say the least, because I
Yeah.
was trying to actually, because my goal was to actually be able to prompt engineer, vibe code, whatever you want to call it, what it is that I was looking for in terms of changes, not because I wanted to get rid of Alex, but more so because I wanted to make it easier on both of us for me to be able to implement things, so that he wasn't spending as much of his time on the user interface or the UI UX interface type stuff, because that's more of a branding type thing and something that I wanted to spend my time doing because I was the visionary.
Yeah.
And but now fast forward 4 months, I now finally, just the other day, I mean, Codex is so good at programming. We created, and Alex, well, at least it's the best out there right now, 5.5 for me and most other people if you're not a programmer, for you, I mean, you're the best. I mean, you can do it the best, but still. And because I don't think these AI agents are better than humans because yet it's going to be changing, I think, in probably 6 to 12 months. But I think that it's going to be tipping. But I think that, and what now is happening is that we've created this staging project, and I asked the AI agent to go do and this is a great prompt, go do research on all of the other platforms that are competitive to ours, that are
Yeah.
competitors to ours. It did that. I said also identify what they're doing that we're not doing, identify their pricing and compare it to ours, and give me a full report back. It did that. I
Yeah.
said, okay, take that report now and give me suggested changes that you want to see in our software and actually make them in the staging platform. And then send a Vercel link. It sent a local host link to my programmer. Like, dude, it's not on my. It's got to be a Vercel link. You got to send a link to my program.
I'm not a big fan of Next.js, but we don't have to get into that. But I
No,
do want to kind of
yeah,
end with this one thing though. Like anybody can set up a Chantilly agent, and I will help you set up yours. It doesn't cost any money, just to try it out, and then we can sketch out a few use cases and see how it compares to Hermes, because it might be nice to have a backup system or a system that you have a little bit more control or retention over.
yeah,
And that's something that, and the license for the Chantilly ADK is so that you can reincorporate it and turn it closed source and make money on it. There's no kickback. I forget
yeah,
what type of license it is, but it's completely
open,
open source for anybody to use for any use case. I
yeah,
really, even if you're like, hey, I want a Chantilly agent, I want it to do all these things, and we make all these custom tools, and you have your own knowledge base, that agent itself you can replicate and you can put up as a software as a service. And
hmm,
so that's one thing one of my clients is trying to do now. They're an accountant, and they're like, hey, we've got this, our knowledge base is like so good
yeah,
that when we bring on junior accountants, our training and their pickup has gone from months to weeks now, and they're
wow,
able to handle better workloads. So
wow,
I really think like, yeah, there's a lot of cool things. We're just now scratching the
yeah,
surface on agenticness. So I didn't
totally.
mean to cut you off. I
No,
just
no, no.
wanted to throw the offer to anyone out there. You can just hit me up on my
That,
email, and I'll
It's
help you
awesome.
with
I mean, please. I mean, if I wasn't so far down the rabbit hole with Hermes right now, I would like
Sure.
jump all over that because I'm honestly like that. If you're just getting started, is especially if you're getting the offer of having somebody walk you through the setup, and especially if you don't have knowledge, because the only way that I've been able to set it up is with me using Codex as my helper to set up Hermes. So you
Yeah.
have to understand there's an intermediary in between me and Hermes that I'm having to talk through. Now, having said that, I want to finish what I was saying. I mean,
Sure.
ultimately, the solution was pretty damn good. Like actually, the suggestion that Hermes agent gave me in terms of the changes and the actual changes that Codex came up with was mind blowing. I was like, oh my gosh, it came up with a health checker and gave suggestions that I never even thought of that were like what very spot on in terms of what people are actually looking for. So I'm just blown away at what can be done. So first of all, how can people get a hold of you? And if there's one other thing that you want to share with people before we jump off, what is that?
Sure. So you can hit me up by email. So it's robshan@deepauras.com. And just send me what you are trying to use your agent for, and I'll give you a little bit of a prospectus, and I'll be very upfront with what is possible and what's not possible with the current implementation, and then kind of a roadmap. So setting up a Chantilly agent doesn't take more than 30 minutes, but it's just like onboarding a new employee. You do have to give it the training and populate the knowledge base and kind of set some tools up, but that doesn't really take much time. And then since it's on Google Cloud, it does help to have some person with Google Cloud experience, but it could be set up on AWS or any other cloud provider. So the last thing that I will end with, if we get to talk more, is I think some of the maybe non like workflow related things that AI I think is really good for, that I use as a business leader, is a lot of like ethical questions that sometimes I can't ask my employees, or I'm embarrassed to even share with my business partners or my colleagues. And even though like AI is giving you approximations, sometimes approximations are all you really need in order to find your path. So
Yep.
for path finding, I think AI is really important now.
Yeah, I agree. I 100%. I mean, it's good enough. I mean, whereas before we didn't have anything to go off of, and I think that's what's really, really exciting about AI is that now we can at least get things done or at least attempt to get things done. Whereas before we couldn't even really attempt. Like
Yes.
even attorney work. The
Mhm.
only option you had before was calling up an attorney.
Attorney. Mhm.
And it's the same thing with any sort of prompt engineering, for example. I could never do any of that before. Now at least I
Mhm.
have a shot at it.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so many things that this applies to that AI can be used as an assistant for, to at least get us started creating a logo. Before, the
Sure.
only option I had was to go to
Call
somebody
a
that,
graphic designer.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's options. So and the option now with AI is as good and sometimes almost better than the previous options that we had. That's what's amazing about it. So anyway, thanks for jumping on, Rabshan,
Yeah.
and it was really cool talking to you. And yeah,
Talk to you soon.
I'll see you in a bit.
Yeah. Talk to you
All right.
soon. Bye.
All right.